Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in life when the noise around you becomes too loud, too distracting, too demanding, and in that moment you realize something important. The world doesn't have to quiet down. You do, because true growth, real, lasting, unshakable growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It doesn't happen when people are clapping for you or cheering your name. It happens in silence. It happens in the places where nobody is watching, nobody is validating, nobody is checking in on your progress. It happens when you're alone with your thoughts, alone with your goals, alone with your doubts, and still willing to become better. The world sees your results, but the silence sees your transformation. Today, we're talking about what it truly means to build yourself in silence and come back greater than anyone expected. Silence has a way of becoming a shield for your spirit, a hidden place where your growth can breathe without interruption. Too often, we give the world early access to chapters of our story that aren't ready to be read yet. We talk about our dreams before we've built the discipline to sustain them. We announce our plans before our foundation is strong enough to hold them. Then when doubt, opinions, or judgment arrives, we shrink. Not because we aren't capable, but because we let noise touch something that was still fragile. Silence protects you from that. It keeps the seed covered until it becomes strong enough to push through the soil. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize that not everyone deserves a front row seat to their becoming. Growth is sensitive, delicate, and often misunderstood. When you decide to improve, there will always be people who question why. When you start building new habits, some will tell you you're changing too much, too fast. When you try to elevate, some will pull you back to where they feel comfortable. Silence keeps all of that away. It helps you build strength without interference, confidence without comparison, and purpose without pressure. Think about nature. A seed doesn't rise to the surface the second it's planted. It stays underground, hidden and unseen. Not because it's weak, but because it's preparing. It's forming roots that will later hold the weight of branches, leaves, and storms. If you dig it up too soon, if you expose it before it's ready, you don't speed up its growth, you kill it. That's how your goals work too. Some things need time in the dark. Some dreams need space away from eyes that don't understand them. Your discipline needs privacy. Your healing needs privacy. Your rebuilding needs privacy. Silence becomes the soil that holds you steady while you get stronger. Growth requires solitude, not loneliness solitude. There's a difference. Loneliness is the feeling of being without people. Solitude is the power of being with yourself. In solitude, the noise fades, the world quiets, and what's left is honesty. You start hearing your real thoughts, not the ones shaped by expectations. You begin confronting your fears instead of running from them. You recognize what actually matters and, more importantly, what doesn't. In the silence, you begin to understand yourself at a deeper level, and self-understanding is the beginning of transformation. You also learn discipline in silence. When nobody is watching, you wake up early. You start relying less on motivation and more on commitment. When nobody is checking on your progress, you stop trying to impress and start trying to improve. When nobody claps for you, you learn to clap for yourself. Silence trains you to keep going without applause, without validation, without someone calling your name. That kind of discipline becomes unbreakable. There will come a day when you step out of that quiet season, and the world will notice something different about you. They'll see strength where there used to be doubt. They'll see focus where there used to be confusion. They'll see confidence that wasn't always there. And they'll ask when it happened, how it happened, who helped you. But they'll never understand that it happened in the silence, in the moments nobody else saw, in the battles you fought alone, in the promises you made to yourself when the world wasn't listening. Silence doesn't make you smaller. It makes you sharper. It doesn't dim your light. It helps you build the fire that will later make the light impossible to ignore. Protect your growth the way a seed protects its roots. Quietly, patiently, faithfully. Let the world see your results, not your process. Let the noise wait outside while you do the work inside. And when you finally return, stronger than before, they'll realize that the silence was never empty. It was where you became who you were meant to be. There is a power in silence that most people never learn to tap into. We live in a world filled with noise, constant opinions, constant distractions, constant pressure to perform, to prove, to explain ourselves. But the truth is, the voice that matters most is the one that comes from inside you. And you can only hear it when you step away from everything else. Silence helps you hear yourself clearly. It strips away the clutter and forces you to face the person you are, the person you want to become, and the life you are capable of creating. When you are constantly surrounded by noise, you start to believe it. You start to let the judgments of others dictate your choices. You begin living by the standards set for you by friends, family, colleagues, or society. You mimic, you follow, you conform, and slowly, you forget the voice that matters most. Your intuition, your instincts, your dreams, they all get drowned out. But when you embrace silence, all of that fades away. You can finally hear your own heartbeat, your own mind, your own vision. And once you hear it, clarity begins. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most certain, most yourself. Those moments didn't come from a crowd telling you were right. They came from being still, from listening to your instincts, from paying attention to what your heart was telling you. Silence gives you that space to connect with your inner guidance. It allows you to discern between what is noise and what is truth. It allows you to make decisions that align with your purpose, not the expectations of others. In silence, you also confront your fears. You hear the whispers of doubt that you usually ignore, and instead of running from them, you face them. You realize that fear is not your enemy, it is information. It tells you where you need to grow, where you need to act, and where you need to be courageous. Without silence, fear feels overwhelming because it blends with the noise. With silence, it becomes manageable. It becomes a tool for clarity. Real life examples show how powerful this principle can be. Many of the world's great innovators, leaders, and artists didn't make their breakthroughs in the middle of a crowd or under constant attention. They made them in quiet rooms, in early mornings, in long walks alone. The solitude allowed them to focus on their ideas, hear their instincts, and refine their vision without interference. The clarity they found in silence became the blueprint for extraordinary results. Silence also teaches patience and perspective. When you step away from constant chatter and endless comparison, you begin to see your life in a new light. You start to understand what really matters. You can distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. You begin to notice patterns, understand yourself, and make choices based on insight rather than reaction. Silence allows you to pause before you act, to think before you speak, and to respond instead of reacting. Most importantly, silence strengthens your connection to your purpose. When the world is quiet, your purpose becomes audible. You begin to recognize the work you are meant to do, the people you are meant to serve, and the impact you are capable of making. You realize that your life is not about pleasing everyone else, but about fulfilling the potential you were born with. So step away from the noise, turn off the distractions, walk alone if you have to. Sit in stillness, listen to yourself, pay attention to the thoughts, feelings, and desires that rise when no one else is watching. That voice is your compass. That voice is your guide. That voice is the one that will lead you to clarity, strength, and purpose. And once you hear it, once you truly listen, you will never let the noise drown it out again. Discipline and strength are not born in comfort. They are forged in the quiet, in the moments when nobody is watching, when the applause is absent, when there is no recognition, and nothing is guaranteed. Silence builds both, because it forces you to confront yourself, your weaknesses, your excuses, and your potential. It strips life down to its rawest form and asks a simple question: will you keep going when there is nothing to reward you immediately? That is where discipline begins, and that is where inner strength grows. When you are alone in silence, excuses lose their power. There is no one to impress, no one to explain yourself to, no one to carry you forward. You wake up early because you promised yourself you would. You study when it is uncomfortable because your future self depends on it. You work when everyone else is resting because the goal is bigger than the momentary ease. In those quiet moments, your character is being sculpted, and every choice you make in solitude strengthens the version of you that the world will eventually see. Think about athletes who train before dawn, practicing drills while the streets are empty. Nobody cheers for them then. Nobody documents the struggle. The fatigue, the sweat, the repeated failures are unseen. Yet that is the work that creates champions. That is the work that shapes bodies and minds capable of greatness. It is the same in every area of life. Discipline and strength are built in the private hours, in the unseen effort, in the quiet commitment to keep showing up when it would be easier to quit. Silence also gives you the chance to confront your inner distractions. When there is noise all around, it is easy to avoid the hard work of self-examination. But when you remove the distractions, you face yourself, your procrastination, your fears, your lack of focus. And when you face those truths without deflection, you begin to take control. You begin to act intentionally. You begin to strengthen not just your actions, but your mind, your will, and your ability to endure. That is the power of building discipline in silence. The quiet also forces consistency, and consistency is the backbone of strength. It is easy to be motivated when everyone is watching, when praise is immediate, when progress is visible. It is far harder to be motivated when no one is there to notice your struggle. But when you practice discipline without recognition, you are training yourself to depend on something stronger than applause. You are learning to depend on your own commitment, your own values, and your own vision of who you are meant to become. Strength that is built quietly is resilient. It does not crumble under criticism. It does not waver in failure. It does not need validation to keep moving forward, because you have tested it when the world was silent, when only your conscience was present. You have proven to yourself that you are capable of showing up, putting in the work, and enduring even when it is uncomfortable. And that inner strength carries through every storm, every challenge, every setback. Every great story of transformation, every example of extraordinary achievement begins with unseen effort. It begins with someone willing to work in silence, to practice in solitude, to train without notice, to confront themselves without distraction, to commit without reward. That is how discipline is built, and that is how inner strength becomes unshakable. Embrace the quiet. Use it to push beyond your limits. Use it to build habits that serve you, focus that sharpens you, and resilience that empowers you. Let the world see your results, not your process. Let the silence do its work. In the end, the discipline and strength forged there will define every step you take, every challenge you overcome, and every life you touch. Healing is not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't seek validation. And it doesn't need an audience. True healing happens quietly, in the spaces where the world is absent, and your mind is free to process, reflect, and restore. Silence heals you without interruption, because it removes the voices that tell you to move faster, to ignore the pain, to pretend everything is fine. When you allow yourself to step into that quiet, you give your mind, your body, and your spirit the space to do the work they have been trying to do all along. Most people run from their pain because the world pressures them to keep performing. They laugh when they hurt. They smile when they're breaking inside. They fill their time with noise to avoid facing the wounds that need attention. But that avoidance only prolongs the struggle. Silence, on the other hand, allows you to stop running. It gives you permission to feel, to cry, to process, to confront the emotions you have buried under obligation, distraction, or pride. When you stop ignoring the hurt and begin listening to it, you begin the real work of transformation. Healing in silence is about patience and presence. It's about showing up for yourself every day, even when the pain is heavy, even when the memories sting, even when it feels like no progress is being made. The process is slow because growth is slow. Emotional wounds take time to mend. Mental scars take time to fade. Spiritual fractures take time to restore. But each quiet moment you dedicate to yourself strengthens the foundation for a comeback that is stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. Think of someone recovering from a loss or a setback. They may go through the motions in public, appearing composed, yet in private they confront the full weight of their experience. They wrestle with questions, confront regrets, and examine choices without distraction. That silent process is what enables them to return with clarity, purpose, and strength. The healing that happens quietly is deeper because it is untainted by external influence. It is authentic, unhurried, and profound. Silence also allows you to gain perspective. When you step away from constant noise, criticism, and comparison, your mind begins to sort the truth from the clutter. You start to see patterns, understand motives, and recognize the lessons embedded in your struggles. You see that what once seemed like failure is actually preparation. You realize that the heartbreak, disappointment, or setback is shaping a resilience within you that no applause could ever create. Healing in silence turns pain into insight, suffering into growth, and reflection into action. In that quiet space, you also regain control. When everything around you is loud, it is easy to feel swept along by circumstance, carried by the opinions and expectations of others. Silence gives you sovereignty over your own recovery. You decide the pace, you choose the direction, you determine what to let go and what to hold on to, and that control is empowering. It reminds you that the ability to heal has always been inside you, waiting for the quiet moment when you would finally listen. Healing in silence is preparation for strength. It is the calm before the storm of your comeback. It is the space where courage is built, where clarity is formed, and where resilience becomes unshakable. When you emerge from this quiet work, you are not just restored. You are renewed. You are more grounded. You are more focused. You are more prepared to face the world with the wisdom and fortitude that only comes from confronting your challenges without interruption. So step away from the noise. Step away from the distractions. Step away from the people who demand that you rush your recovery. Embrace silence. Sit with your thoughts. Face your pain. Let your heart and mind heal at their natural pace. And when you finally step back into the world, you will do so stronger, wiser, and more unbreakable than you ever imagined. Silence is not empty. Silence is the vessel in which you are made whole again. There is a quiet power in rising without announcing it. When you choose to work, to grow, to heal, and to build yourself in silence, you create something that words alone cannot capture. The world will not see the long nights you stayed awake, the tears you shed in private, the doubts you wrestled with, or the discipline you imposed on yourself when no one was watching. But when the time comes for your return, every action, every achievement, every step forward will speak louder than anything you could have said. The comeback is the ultimate proof of what was happening in the quiet. Rising in silence means you are not performing for applause. You are not shaping your life to impress anyone else. You are shaping it to honor your own potential. Every person who achieves greatness has gone through periods where the work was unseen, where the effort was private, and where the struggle was personal. This is where character is built, where resilience is formed, where real transformation occurs. And because it happens quietly, it carries an authenticity that is undeniable when revealed. There is a lesson in patience here. The world often wants instant results, recognition, and validation. But true growth is not a show for spectators. It is a commitment to yourself. When you rise quietly, you are free from the pressure to explain yourself or to justify your path. You are free to focus entirely on becoming the person you were meant to be. That focus creates depth, power, and substance. By the time you emerge, the world can no longer ignore the results, because they are undeniable and unshakable. Think of historical figures, inventors, and leaders who spent years in solitude refining their vision. They did not announce every idea. They did not seek approval at every step. They labored, failed, learned, and persisted in private. And when the breakthrough came, it did not require words. The impact was felt, seen, and recognized without explanation. Your silent work works the same way. Every disciplined choice, every private victory, every moment of perseverance builds the foundation for a return that commands respect. Rising in silence also teaches humility and patience. You learn to focus on the process instead of the recognition. You learn to value progress over praise. You discover that the true reward of effort is not applause, but transformation. And when you finally emerge, the results do the talking. Success, achievement, and growth are louder than any argument, louder than any defense, louder than any explanation. People may have doubted you, criticized you, or questioned you, but your comeback renders all of that irrelevant. There is also a magnetic power in a silent return. People are drawn to someone who has endured, grown, and emerged stronger without seeking validation. That person carries a quiet confidence, a calm authority, and a presence that cannot be ignored. The work done in silence creates a strength that does not boast, a power that does not demand attention, and a credibility that cannot be undermined. The louder you work quietly, the louder your life speaks when you finally reveal it. Your return after silence is the ultimate demonstration of self-respect, commitment, and perseverance. It tells a story without words. It proves that setbacks are not permanent, that pain is not the end, and that those who are willing to do the work when no one is watching will inevitably rise above those who only talk about it. So embrace the quiet seasons. Honor the private moments, fight, build, and heal in the shadows, and when the time comes, step forward. Let your actions, your success, and your transformation speak for themselves. Rise in silence, and when you return, let the world listen, because the power of what you have built in private is always louder than any words could ever be. Build yourself quietly, train privately, heal privately. Work privately, plan privately, and when the time is right, come back so strong, so focused, so elevated, that even you are shocked by the person you've become. Silence is not weakness. Silence is preparation. Silence is strength. Silence is the birthplace of greatness. Build yourself in silence, and when you return, return greater.